couldn't any longer hire our way out of every support need. So automation was there at a really opportune time to help us fill the gap and save the brain power for human problems.
Robert Swannie is an IT pro and expert, and is currently a director of security and compliance at Four Hands, a seasoned IT executive with 25 years of experience, including leading brands at Oatly, Blue Buffalo, and Swiss Army. He has seen it all with his many years in IT.
If you were to guess a couple of job titles in IT that are completely gone in 2 years, what would they be?
I mean, I hope this isn't true, but
welcome to Espresso Enterprise, the show where we sit down with IT leaders shaping the future of enterprise technology. I'm your host, Sumit Pashupalak, and today we are hitting pause and looking back to ask, how has IT department truly evolved in the last 5 years, especially with how fast AI is moving? Joining us today is Rob Swannie. Rob, thanks a lot for joining. I heard you're releasing a new book soon. Could you talk a little bit about that?
yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Absolute honor to be here. I think one of the things that we could focus more on in the workplace is empathy in leadership. So, we're really dealing with a diverse population. And with diversity comes, the need for leaders to be showing empathy and creating safe psychological environments and building trust. You really get the best out of your team. So my book will come out in early 2026, and it's aptly called Leading Like a Human.
Awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
I guess we can just get right into it. How do you think COVID changed how IT departments are run?
So I really think there was a shift. IT was really seen as a cost center or utility, right? Keep the lights on, fix the printer, patch the service. But then during COVID, it really became a business continuity engine. The pandemic didn't just elevate it, it made it mission critical, right? And CIOs started getting invited to the boardroom because it wasn't just support, it was survival. And overnight, we shifted from just keep it running to make it run from anywhere securely and at scale. And there's two things that really impacted me and my perspective on IT in the pandemic times. And one, we were forced to unsilo teams. Originally HR, IT, security, operations were each in their own lane. And we were in a facility making it happen with separate work streams. And then COVID came and we went to a remote workforce, and we were really forced to do true cross-functional collaboration. You couldn't deploy a remote onboarding system without working hand in hand with these other departments. So we had to deeply understand the needs of remote workers. And I think that blurred the lines a bit and really built a better cross-department collaboration. So that was the first thing that really impacted my team and my organization when it happened. And then during COVID, IT used to be a security was the perimeter. My role is security now for Four Hands. So everything was perimeter based, firewalls, VPNs, badge readers. It was the standard operating. But with COVID, identity became the new perimeter, and that really shifted. Zero trust wasn't just a buzzword, it was a lifeline. You really had to focus on reducing impact, and endpoint management became critical. XDR, end user behavioral analytics, and secure access service edge all became essential. And I think we had to shift from protecting the office to protecting the person. So when people logged in, we had to be there and we had to understand what that was. So those were two critical shifts from my perspective that really changed everything.
Okay, great. And a lot of people talk about how a lot of collaborative tools took off during COVID, right? The Zooms, Teams, and all that. But you're talking about some more interesting IT specific tools that took off. For example, Zero Trust and all that. So, could you give us examples of some new companies from maybe the last 5 or 7 years uh, that took off more inside the IT department rather than externally?
Yeah, I mean, we had to get remote access to people's networks, to people's PCs. We really had to up the game on our remote support, and that came with tools like remote access tools like we use ConnectWise, or you had to have your VPN game strong. You had to have your like Sentinel-1 for endpoint protection, sort of across the XDR space. I think these things all evolved with the pandemic and really brought another layer of security and operating to the thing. And of course, Teams and Zoom and all those things became critical because we were all meeting across screens with each other. So I think it was a big shift.
Okay, and if you were to tell your 2019 self uh, how your IT team is run in 2025, what would shock you the most?
So, I mean, the ability to scale, right? It's just staggering. I mean, I've always been in the manufacturing space where you had to have systems on-prem due to latency issues and things. But I always worked with co-locations and hosting partners. And I thought, this is a great opportunity to get, eliminate your single points of failure. And I think that when Azure hit, 100 billion in bookings in late 2018, I used to think, how far is this going to scale, and now I can stand up POCs in 5 minutes and things like that. So that was really mind blowing to me, the way it scaled. And I also think there's a human thing that didn't come out. A lot of us were in the office, and we were in the office for 8 hours a day, and there wasn't a lot of flexibility. And I think now, we realize there's hybrid working environments that actually are able to function. And we're getting more into flex time and the human nature. And there's a new level in trust around the idea that people aren't just employees, right? They're parents, they're partners, they're caregivers. And in my experience, when you give people that trust and space, it builds a loyalty, and they thrive in it.
Okay, great. And fast forward a few years past COVID, the AI revolution has started, and we have heard that in enterprise multiple times over the last 15 years, but this time it seems to have a little bit more substance than before. So, I guess my first question is, how has AI changed things in the IT department?
Well, I want to take a step back here and go through the timeline, because I think it really plays into how teams have adopted and why they adopted AI. So when COVID started, we all went remote, right? And tech companies hired over 500,000 additional workers between 2020 and 2022. There was a surge for digital service demand in lockdown. And it was also, we had low interest rates, aggressive venture capital funding, and the scaling of services was off the charts. And unfortunately, we didn't realize that we had a short-sighted growth model, and we were falsely anticipating long-term pandemic behavior, right? So 2022, we started shifting to a global reopening. And the market correction came, right? And we saw higher inflation, interest rate hikes, and consumer shifts. And companies started realizing that they had overhired. And, we started cutting back, right? They were forced into downsizing. And right in November of 2022, ChatGPT was released. And I think that's the point where we realized that AI had the potential to become a scalable tier one support layer. And I think that really the timeline is ironic, right? Because as companies started scaling back and getting back to the office, we realized we couldn't any longer hire our way out of every support need. So automation was there at a really opportune time to help us fill the gap and save the brain power for human problems.
So was ChatGPT the first time you heard about generative AI or a LLM based product, or
Yeah,
had you heard about it before as well?
I mean,
Yeah.
the term artificial intelligence was coined in 1956, I believe, right? And we had heard rumors of it, and there were POCs and things that the bigger companies were doing, but I was always in this small to mid market space because I like to touch all technology. I don't want to be cornered into a specific. So in the small to mid-sized market, ChatGPT was really the catalyst that for realizing that AI was gonna be a force.
Do you remember your reaction the first time somebody told you about ChatGPT?
Yeah, I had been messing with AT&T's voice to prompt script back in, when it was available and things like that. And of course I dove right into Chat GPT and started doing it. And it was a little more rogue back then. It wasn't as refined as it is now. But I do remember just having wild imagination about the possibilities of where this was going to scale.
And how long after that did you realize that, okay, this isn't just another AI hype cycle?
I mean,
It's actually going to change how we work.
yeah, by the time, it came out in November of 2023 or 2022, and by early 2023, I was already using it to develop SOPs and job descriptions, and I could feed stuff into it and do my work that used to take me days in minutes. So I really started to adopt it and bring it in to the organization and try to get people to use it responsibly. I still kept it in guardrails though, because my role is security and compliance, and there's a lot of concern around compliance and where your data leakage and things like that. So it was probably early 2023, and I think I was more proof of concept, as opposed to actually letting it rip.
And do you remember how your team felt in 2023 when they heard about ChatGPT? Were they, did they think it was their jobs would be replaced? What was the feeling within the team?
I think that there was a lot of fear about that, but I'll be honest with you. Technology has been replacing jobs since, the manufacturing lines for Ford, right? He invented the assembly line and things like that, but it never creates a vacuum, right? We have to figure out how to reskill and readapt the workforce to meet that. And I think if you have anxiety around AI taking your job, I think your exposure to it, you may just be using it for surface level tasks, right? You're not using it to improve your data sets or increase automation, because when you do it and use it in that frame, you're expanding your role and AI is the turbocharger, right? If you're a car guy, um, you're not going to be replaced. You're going to expand your role and make it more productive. And another thing I want to point out is that AI can never replace the human nature. AI cannot tell if you're dealing with a burnt out user or if you're dealing with a burnt out employee. You still need the absolute human nature to harness AI and use it in a productive way. So I really, I see the need to adapt the workforce, and it never goes in line at exactly as it should. But I think as leaders, we can certainly drive that change through the organization and reduce the fears and anxiety around it.
Yeah, you mentioned a good point about dealing with humans and dealing with human nature, and it'll be very hard for AI to learn that. So, could you maybe give a couple more examples around that so that our listeners can also understand what you're talking about, how that fits in the, in the next 3 to 5 years is beyond technology, learning how to deal with humans, and maybe that's where you can have an edge
Yeah,
compared to somebody else.
You know, I think there's, I think everybody's using AI for surface level tasks, right? We're steering end users to the right documentation or to the right solutions. 90% of the time, maybe 80. I don't have exact stats on that, but there's a certain level of frustration when that isn't the fix, right? So I think you need that human level to come in after that and triage along with the AI and make it make your service levels better. I really focus on high service levels. My sweet spot is cross training and building functional teams, and I think AI has really played an important part in that level one. Feed them documentation so the humans can focus on more complex problems, which drives job satisfaction, and your service metrics are increasing right through the use of AI. But I don't think it's at a level there where it's perfect, and I think you always need to have that human interaction to catch it before your workforce becomes too frustrated. I think that'll evolve and scale, but I always think there'll be a need for that human interaction.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but does your team have the same feeling that you do? That, like, their jobs are safe, AI is not going to replace their job?
So one of my if you read my LinkedIn reviews, one of my specialties career pathing my team and guiding them through growth and development in their roles, because I really feel the more you invest in your people, and that's why I'm reading it, writing about leading like a human, you can work with them through that and you can give them paths out of it. Yes, my level one team has seen a reduction in touches for tickets and problems. And of course, they're concerned about what AI will do to the level one role, right? But as we career path and we talk about cross training them with level two and level three and where they're now needed, I think leadership really needs to focus on how we bring them into the parts where we can't fit AI. And I think, you have to be adaptable and agile in your thought process around that. But of course there's anxiety, right? They see these AI chatbots and stuff solving problems on level one that where we didn't, we had to have humans before.
That makes sense. And beyond service, where else have you started implementing AI within the IT department?
So we've try to get it in our master data, enterprise information management, things like that, where we really have challenges with data sets and automation. Of course, in our distribution models, we have slip bots and things that automatically move product across the warehouse. So I think it's improving our distribution, it's improving our data models, and I think it's only going to scale from there.
And I guess what does that mean in terms of the new projects that within the next couple of years? Can you tell me about some projects that you're maybe thinking of right now, but with how fast AI is coming along,
Well,
you
let's
see a big impact?
yeah, let's talk about security for a minute because that's my sweet spot. And there's there's a lot of articles out there about how good phishing emails are getting with AI, right? It used to be spelling mistakes and, your SPF and DKIM records wouldn't match and things like that. But now with AI, it's getting so much better. So I'm focused more on AI in the security space. The gist of it is only AI is going to be able to detect AI at some point, right? And I think that in the security space, being able to process logs at light speed is really going to make a huge impact. And implementing AIs in your mail gateway and things like that will really bring efficiency. Right now, my SIM is, I process 1.5 terabytes or 2 terabytes of data a month. And there's no way for humans to go through those logs effectively and do event correlation and things that, it's growing at such a speed that I really think in the security space, it's going to scale. And I've also seen a lot of efficiency come in the data space and the distribution space with, using AI to monitor our tow trucks that go around and pull product off the shelves and understanding, the efficiencies in that and how we gain more efficiency by placing product in certain spaces. And, I think it's going to scale to every facet of IT and operations. I really think it's a no-brainer.
Okay, and where do you think AI is hyped right now? You think, AI is overhyped and it's not able to do certain things, but people are promoting it more than what it can do. So what are some of the fields within IT or even cybersecurity that you see AI is not there yet?
I mean, even on your level 1 service desk, right? AI is good, but it's just not there yet. It doesn't pick up every problem off a chat description. In the security space, you're still going to need a human to take your most serious cases and really do analysis against it, right? So I think it's overhyped across the board in most spaces because there was a joke about big data. And it's like most people are talking about it, but nobody's really doing it effectively. Data lakes are a drain on the economy if you can't efficiently use them. And I think the hype around AI is true. It's going to scale to that level. But I think it's the Wild West right now. And I think a lot of companies are coming out promising that AI will solve all your problems. And their products are not effective enough yet to eliminate the human factor.
I know one big $200 billion worth IT company that's promising big things, but
Yeah,
can't use their name, but
right.
their products don't work yet is
Yeah.
all I can say.
Right. Exactly. But the promise is there, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's going to become more effective and more efficient. but I think it'll continue to present new challenges as we scale, and that's where the human workforce who manages the AI will be critical.
Okay, so Rob, if you were to guess a couple of job titles in IT that are completely gone in 2 years, what would they be?
I mean, I hope this isn't true, but your SOC analysts and your level ones, your foundational low levels are where AI is going to start because we're already using it. That's where it's going to mature the fastest, right? And I think that's really that's my guess anyway.
Okay, and what's after, you think, after the lowest level analyst? Where do you think it goes next?
So your enterprise data management, your forecasting and reporting and things like that, AI is going to be able to chew up that data in a tenth of the time and spit out all the information you need to guide your organization to success and help you understand where your sales and your purchases really come from.
So, are you having conversations with these team members now
Yeah, of course.
about the future?
Of
Yeah.
course, of
What are you
course.
telling them?
And well, we're senior level, right? We're not
Yeah.
we're not the junior level analysts. So the fear and is not really there at our level because we're embracing the AI and really benefiting from the increased efficiencies. So as I talk to these leaders of enterprise information management and distribution, AI is a boom to us, but at the lower level, when you're a foundational employee who's driving the hand truck on the floor, where AI will probably take that over. I mean, we've had forklifts in manufacturing already doing the work. I think that's where the fear comes in because, again, it always technology always puts people out of work, but it doesn't create the vacuum, right? We always reshape the
Sense.
workforce to use their skills in other places. But it's a tough prediction. I just can't wait to see it happen.
And do you think other businesses are having the same conversations with uh, their employees? How important do you think is this conversation at an organizational or a business level?
I think it's critical. And, I try and do a lot of networking and I go to a lot of IT events and I talk to leaders about what they're doing about with AI, specifically because it's important to me to get outside of my box and try and be more agile in my thought process. But as we talk to these leaders, we have to consider the workforce, right? Because we couldn't survive without the workforce right now. And how are we going to handle AI when, it has challenges and things like that? So, yeah, other leaders that I've talked to are really focused on what they're going to do with AI, the roadmap, and then what they're going to do with the people as well, because, it's really critical that you take your employees into the conversation.
Okay, and that brings up to leadership within IT in this AI world. How do you think your own role as an IT leader has evolved? What are some of the things you do now that was not expected before but is expected in this AI world?
So, from a leadership perspective, you've got to, and this is organizational and for my own team. You've got to create a framework, right? IT can no longer be a fence or security, right? Can't be a fence. You've got to turn it into a framework and you've got to empower your employees to use AI. And one of the things I just wrote a LinkedIn article on is prompting with precision, how to get more out of your AI from using precision prompts that focus, it's a formula of how to get better results out of your AI. And then you've got to talk to your other teams about data governance is critical, right? How to implement AI securely and work through those proof of concepts without risking your data and without risking your organization. Because right now I've got people that just want to plug in these AI tools and have no guardrails around it. And I think, you really need to empower them to think critically, power, problem solve, and produce. But you have to have guardrails around it. It's not just to automate anymore.
That makes sense. And for somebody who is starting in IT, just graduated a couple years ago, what do you think they should do different compared to 2019?
I mean, all the schools are tracked in AI right now, and I think it's something that the up and coming IT person has to embrace. You have to put it in your tool belt, right? You have to have experience with it. You've got to understand roadmaps and things like that. So that's what I'm doing to mentor my team. I'm actually part of a mentoring program where I've connected with some college students at the University of Texas, and we're talking through how AI is going to scale in automation, how it's going to scale in security, how it's going to scale in data management, and we're prepping them for the roadmap of AI. It's just like when you had millennials, right, who were raised on tablets and screens, and you thought that was going to be a challenge. From a leadership perspective, AI is the next challenge, and you've got to mentor students through the process of understanding, the guardrails around it.
And let's talk a little bit about the older crowd, the people in their late 40s, 50s who have never used AI before and this is their first time using an AI product.
Yeah,
How do you think they should approach it?
so I I think they should. I think they should sit with people that are well versed in it and try to understand it better. I I have a lot of relatives that are using AI for everything, right? They're throwing stuff in chatbots and things like that. And in my day, there was there's no Facebook, there was no LinkedIn, there was, and when we looked up something on the internet, we knew that it wasn't going to scale out. But now I think you have to be cognizant of the data you put into AI, especially if you're not trained in all of the facets of security and privacy and data management. So anybody that's not using AI, I really encourage them to use it because it's such an enabler, and it brings so much speed to the things that you normally do. But I also have to put a security caution out there because, we really don't have the guardrails around it. Europe put GDPR in to play, and the US has scattered statewide, laws and regulations, but we don't have any overarching governance on AI. And I think that's got to come. I think we really need to, as a country, to put some base regulation in for data privacy.
I agree. Uh, okay, I guess we are almost out of time. So thank you, Rob, for providing such detailed insights. It's very clear after this call that the IT department will change drastically with AI. And for our listeners, if you're navigating your own transformation, share this episode with your peers and hit subscribe to stay ahead. I will also post a link to Rob's LinkedIn and maybe a post where he talks about his book as well. And yeah, thanks a lot, Rob.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you.